Hello again, another Agakala React, and today we will be watching the world's unexpected true superpower from the market exit. Another new channel that I haven't seen before, or watch anything from it, so that I know of anyway. So let's just watch it, jump in, and I'm pretty sure they're talking about the European Union, looking at the map, so yeah.
We have passed new laws.
In 1492, Christopher Columbus discovered the New World. This marked the beginning of a period in history when European nations were the world's undisputed superpowers. By colonizing territories and exploiting humans and material resources from across the globe, and by leveraging advancements from the Industrial Revolution, Europe remained a superpower for several hundred years until it was devastated by the two world wars and then hibernated into the Cold War. Since then, power has shifted to the United States with its overwhelming military capabilities, booming economy and cultural influence around the world. Also China with its state capitalism and cheap workforce, and Russia with its abundant energy resources have become global superpowers. Does this mean that Europe's time as a global superpower is completely over? Well, maybe not. Some argue that Europe, through the European Union, today continues to shape the world. But not by military might or by leveraging natural resources, but by employing sophisticated legal tools, laws and regulations. On a Friday in February 1992, the same year Disney released Aladdin and Bush and Yeltsin formally declared the end of the Cold War, these 12 men gathered in the Dutch city of Maastricht to sign a treaty, the Maastricht Treaty. In this treaty, 12 European nations agreed to create the European Union, a regulatory state with its own vast powers to adopt and harmonize laws for its member states. The Maastricht Treaty, or the Treaty on European Union as it's also called, was a major step in what had then been a 40-year-long process of European integration. After the Second World War, 6 countries, Belgium, France, Italy, Luxembourg, the Netherlands and West Germany, decided to prevent another devastating war by becoming more integrated, both politically and economically. In 1951, they took the first step towards integration by signing the Treaty of Paris, which created the European Coal and Steel Community, a community designed to create a single market for coal and steel. As the French Foreign Minister Robert Schuman famously declared, by creating a single market for these materials that militaries need to wage war would become not merely unthinkable, but materially impossible. In 1959, the 6 countries took another step towards integration by signing the Treaty of Rome, which created the European Economic Community, where the single market was expanded to more than just coal and steel. And after that, the community expanded with a number of new member states. In 1973, Denmark, Ireland and the United Kingdom joined. In 1981, Greece joined, and in 1986, Portugal and Spain joined. In 1992, it was these 12 countries that signed the Maastricht Treaty, and since then, another 16 countries have joined the Union and 1 has exited. So ever since the beginning, this European integration project has aimed to create a European single market, and to create a single market that enables frictionless trade between a large number of relatively heterogeneous countries. What you need to do is to adopt laws and regulations, a lot of laws and regulations to harmonize the rules between all of these different countries. And with the Maastricht Treaty, the Union was finally given the powers to do exactly that, to adopt a lot of laws and regulations. Since the Maastricht Treaty's ratification, the EU has adopted over 10,000 legislative acts. And it's because of all of this regulation that has been adopted to create a European single market that the European Union has regained its position as a global superpower. This mac and cheese is produced by Kraft Foods in North America and is consumed worldwide. This product used to be artificially colored with something called yellow number 5 and yellow number 6, but not anymore, because after studies showed how yellow number 5 and number 6 can trigger hyperactivity in kids, the EU passed laws restricting the use of these colorings. And despite the fact that these colorings are still legal in the US and elsewhere outside the EU, Kraft Foods has decided to comply with the EU rules on a global basis and has replaced artificial colorings in these mac and cheese with natural colorings, such as paprika. These are Havaiana sandals, manufactured by Brazilian company Alpargatas. They're sold in huge quantities all over the world. These sandals used to include phthalate chemicals, but in order to comply with this EU regulation, the REACH regulation, the world's most stringent law on chemicals, the Brazilian company decided to eliminate phthalates from all sandals, regardless of where they will be exported. In 2002, the EU enacted the directive banning hazardous substances in electronics, and in response to this directive, the Japanese company Hitachi announced that it would adapt to this regulation worldwide by phasing out 6 chemicals from 70 of its products. When the EU adopted the General Data Protection Regulation, the GDPR, some 5 years ago, numerous powerful global tech companies, including Apple and Facebook, announced that they intended to adapt to the GDPR, not only for its users in the EU, but for its worldwide operations. So what do these 4 examples show? Well, first of all, they demonstrate how broad the EU's legislative power has become since the Maastricht Treaty. But these examples also show how EU regulations are doing much more than creating a European single market to maintain peace in Europe. EU regulations are also affecting the global activities of everything from American big tech companies to Brazilian footwear manufacturers. Why does this happen? Why do so many huge corporations from around the world decide to adapt their global operations to the laws and regulations of the European Union?
Oh. Well, because European Union market, it's quite a big market, and it's not a poor market as well. So basically, it's a market that brings money. Because we do have money for it. Even if someone is a minimum wage in multiple countries in the European Union, we can still afford living and actually spending those money. So I'm presuming that a lot of those corporations that they don't want to lose the market for it, and it's cheaper for them to change production for one thing if they're gonna be exporting into the European Union and just change it for all of the market, because they don't have to swap it, like do it half for European Union, half for this. They're just gonna be doing exactly the same thing for everyone. What in the long run, most of those cases, it was basically something that was a bit bad for people, like those colors in the food colorings and stuff like that, and the phosphate and whatever. It's just, if it's been said that it's not good, it's harmful for people, why keep doing that? If you're gonna have to change some of your products to be okay, let's just watch it. Oh, forgot about the sound again. Basically what I'm saying is, it's cheaper for those corporations to change into doing the good thing, take out the bad aspect of the production and stuff like that, and just send it everywhere, because they don't have to split the production then.
According to Columbia law professor Anu Bradford, the EU today has a unique ability to use laws and regulations to shape the world in its image. She calls this ability to unilaterally regulate the global marketplace the Brussels effect. In her 2020 book, The Brussels Effect, Anu Bradford sets out 5 criteria that must be met in order for the Brussels effect to take place. And the first Brussels effect criteria is market size. With the European single market, the EU has created the world's second largest economy, with 20% of the global gross national income, and arguably the world's most significant consumer market, with around 500 million relatively affluent consumers. 38% of Russia's exports, 20% of China's exports, and 15% of the US exports go to the European Union, and companies like Facebook have more customers in the EU than in the United States. This huge and valuable market gives the EU international leverage, but the size of the EU's market alone does not explain why its regulation has a big global effect. China, Brazil, and India, for example, they all have large and fast-growing economies, but they lack the second criteria for the Brussels effect to occur, which is that the jurisdiction has to have regulatory capacity, which means that It has to have the experience and institutional resources to adopt and enforce regulation at sufficient scale. The EU has since its beginning in the 50s built a vast regulatory capacity, which is not strange given that the whole purpose of the Union was to use regulation to set up the European single market. The EU institutions today employ over 60,000 people from the 27 member states. However, the EU's regulatory capacity is still modest if compared with the US federal government that employs some 4 million people. And this brings us to the third criteria, which is that for the Brussels effect to occur, the jurisdiction must not only have regulatory capacity, but also the political will to actually adopt stringent rules. Until the 1980s, the US did adopt a lot of regulations, and corporations across the world did often adapt its global operations to the US rules.
Clean air and clean water. These are part of the birthright of every American. We have passed new laws to protect the environment.
But since then, the US has, for various reasons,
Oh, I forgot about my
become
kitty
less
cat.
willing to regulate.
Government
Right.
is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
Meanwhile, the willingness to adopt stringent regulation in the EU has increased, primarily because of the goal to achieve the European single market. But even if a jurisdiction meets all of these criteria, in other words, it has a sufficiently large market, it has regulatory capacity and the willingness to adopt stringent regulation, its regulation can only have the Brussels effect and be globalized if they also meet the last two criteria, which is that the regulation is aimed at inelastic, immobile targets that are also non-divisible. To illustrate this, let's go back to the example of Kraft Foods mac and cheese. When the EU restricted the use of yellow number 5 and yellow number 6, Kraft Foods decided to change the colorings of this product to paprika globally, even though yellow number 5 and number 6 were still legal in the US. And Kraft Foods probably did that because the economies of scale made it worth it to maintain one and the same production line for its global sales of this product. But that will not always be the case.
How can I not find that product in Ireland?
These Smarties are bought here in the European Union. So to comply with EU regulations, these Smarties that are sold here in the EU, they're colored with natural colorings like radish, lemon and red cabbage. But if I would have bought these in the US, however, then they would have probably been colored by yellow number 6 and red number 40, chemicals that are both restricted here in the EU but permitted in the US. So the Brussels effect extends to Kraft's mac and cheese, but it doesn't extend to Smarties. Since Annie Bradford released her book, The Brussels Effect, in 2020, the EU has kept adopting laws that are having huge effects also outside the EU, confirming the existence of a Brussels effect. Two important examples are the recently adopted Digital Markets Act and the Digital Services Act that will force global tech giants to adapt in profound ways. But not everyone is convinced that the Brussels effect is a good thing for the world. Critics often raise three types of objections towards the Brussels effect. The first objection is that the Brussels effect reflects a novel form of imperialism. Second,
I kinda can agree with that. Sorry, my ear is itchy. I've been recording all day, so I can understand where critics come in with that, because honestly, a lot of bad things happened from all the Europeans in the past going out there and colonizing countries and enslaving people and devastating and destroying cultures. And I actually agree with that. That is sort of type of imperialism, but let's just see. It's something that I think we have to go with anyway. I don't know if you've seen The Fifth Element, and there's a president there, and the president is the president of the whole earth. So, you know, have to kind of...
Some large businesses claim that the big volume of EU regulation is costly and it hinders innovation. And third, some claim that much of EU's regulation reflects protectionist aims and are designed to protect European companies from international competition.
I'm sorry, but isn't that kind of like a normal thing most of the time? Isn't that America doing very similar things about their own companies, protect their own companies and, yeah. Okay, let's just watch.
I do have sympathy for the first objection, and I believe that the EU has to be sensitive to whether its regulations, for instance relating to food safety, have detrimental effects for poorer countries. But I'm not really buying the second or third lines of criticism. As for innovation, I don't necessarily believe that regulation always hinders innovation. And here's the thing, sometimes we need regulation even if it does. I also believe EU regulation has played an important role in impeding the harmful global regulatory race to the bottom. A race to the bottom that has been fueled the last decades by neoliberal delusions and crony capitalism, all masquerading under the pretext of safeguarding innovation. I'm also not buying that EU regulation serves to protect EU companies, since significant EU regulation, for instance within tech, does apply even when there is no European incumbent to protect. But what do you think? And do you believe that the Brussels effect will last? Or do you believe that we soon will be talking about a Beijing or New Delhi effect?
We don't know, it might be.
Thank you for watching this video. I want to make more videos like this, and you can help me do that by becoming a Patreon at patreon.com/themarketexit. You can also help me out by subscribing to my channel and by liking the video and by sharing the video with one of your colleagues or one of your friends who you think would like the video. And to my existing patrons, thank you very much for supporting the channel. This video was obviously based on Anu Bradford's book, The Brussels Effect, which is a book that I really enjoyed and I do recommend. It's a fantastic book. If I have to criticize something about the book, then it's that the book too summarily, in my view, accepts that capital is elastic and can move away from a jurisdiction in response to regulation, and that therefore the EU can never use the Brussels effect to effectively regulate capital as such. And here I would have loved to see the book dive deeper into why that is. Perhaps the book could have drawn on the ideas that Anu Bradford's Columbia University colleague Katerina Pistor put forward in her brilliant and thought-provoking 2019 book, Code of Capital, How the Law Creates Wealth and Inequality, which is another great book that I really recommend, and I've been thinking about maybe making a video about. If you have other book recommendations, please send them along, and thank you again for watching this video. See you next time.
Victor, why?
Okay, I'm just gonna save this video to the future watching, because those videos are it was pretty well done video. Okay, let me just save this first to the watch later. There you go. No, cancel. Okay, there you go. And then basically, do you agree with that? Because I kind of agree. Like, I didn't realize that European Union have such a big reach out, that basically companies changing the whole thing for them. But it's just basically, in my opinion, in some cases it's just basically the fact that it's cheaper for them to change the whole one production line than just change, like, getting into two. With the case of Smarties, what he gave there, I'm presuming it's because some of them are produced in European Union and the ones in America are produced in America, so that's the reason. So they have different separate production lines. So yeah, what do you think about this video? Do you agree with the Brussels effect? Thank you very much for watching, and I see you tomorrow. Bye.